The latest CDC tracking data on bird flu suggests the virus may be spreading undetected among humans.
Now, I will tell you that COVID was a minor pandemic. People say it's the biggest pandemic we had in 100 years. It's a minor pandemic. It had probably less than 0.5% mortality, and then only in certain patient populations, those over 60, over 65.
Bird 30 flu, seconds. Why should we be worried about bird flu?
Bird flu is going to be a major pandemic. If in the cases to date in humans have about 50% mortality. If you look at bird flu right now, it's in over 150 million of our chickens and birds. We now know it's in 48 different mammal species. It's now gotten into humans. It's starting to change in humans. Once it learns how to go human to human, we will have a catastrophic pandemic.
We also learned this weekend that the number of hospitalizations is up to 4. That doesn't seem like much. And it isn't, but the worry is if the virus is left unchecked, a more substantial health crisis could be looming.
Now to the spread of bird flu, which is causing egg prices to soar. A dozen eggs now 50% more expensive than a year ago, and there appears to be no relief in sight. Several U.S. Department of Agriculture employees working on the country's response to bird flu were accidentally fired over the weekend, and now the government is trying to hire them back. In a statement released yesterday, the agency says it's working to rescind the letters for the positions related to bird flu efforts. The latest data shows 151 confirmed flocks have been hit by bird flu, affecting 23 million birds. The CDC has confirmed 68 cases of bird flu among humans in the U.S. so far.
So we've been talking about bird flu for quite a bit. I mean, is now the time when people really need to start paying attention with the number of cases that we have? I mean, those are pretty extraordinary numbers.
I think to put this into context, it would be helpful for people to understand how a pandemic bird flu emerges. And we have a graphic, I think, that's going to come up on screen here to help illustrate this. So the bird flu can infect birds as well as mammals, which include pigs, cattle, and cats. People can get infected with the bird flu when they come into close contact with infected animals. So farm workers, for example, are at high risk for infection. At the same time, people can get infected with the regular human flu during winter flu season. And so a person could get infected with both the human flu and the bird flu at the same time, especially if, say, they're a farm worker or someone else who comes into close contact with infected animals. So now the flu virus is made up of 8 different pieces of genetic material. When you have different flu strains infect a person or another animal at the same time, those flu strains can swap parts. And that's how you make a new hybrid flu strain. These new hybrid flu strains can be especially dangerous because now you can get the human-to-human spread, and that can spark a pandemic.
When it's a horror movie, I mean, that is terrifying.
It's Frankenstein, right?
Of course, now they have authorized vaccines, bird flu vaccines for poultry. And one of the things about influenza is that it is a multi-stranded single-strand RNA virus, which means that it mutates, drifts, and shifts very rapidly. And it's almost impossible, has been impossible to develop a universal influenza vaccine. They've been trying for my entire career to do this. And they continue to talk the talk, as Jerry Parker does, that, we just have to somehow magically find the right antigen, and then we will have a universal influenza vaccine, give us another $500 million. That's how that dialogue works. And it has failed again and again. What the vaccinologist kind of cabal, as I talk about it, it's a group of people that suffer from groupthink. What they all share is the belief that since you can vaccinate for some things like measles, you can be able to develop a vaccine for all things. But that's not true. Here's a key thing. If you get infected with measles, it's generally a one and done. You get infected once, typically as a child, and there's a reason why it circulates in children mostly. You get infected once and then you're immune for life. So it makes sense that you can make a measles vaccine that would also protect you over a long period of time because the infection itself does. Influenza, no. We all know that influenza comes back around season after season after season, and just because you've been infected last year, you're not protected this year. And furthermore, the vaccines that people have tried to make are typically running in the range of 20 to 50% effective in terms of preventing infection and disease. Now, that's going to happen with the birds also. And what's going to happen, and the rest of the world knows this. I don't know why Jerry Parker is supporting this idea as a vet. He is all in with Peter Hotez, and he is all part of this, vaccinate our way out of everything. But what is going to happen if we start vaccinating poultry with a leaky influenza vaccine, because all influenza vaccines are leaky, is that what we will do is evolve a more vaccine-resistant bird flu. And then we've got even more of a problem. And overseeing the Vaccine Research Center, which is where these products were originally developed, there's a lot of confusion about who actually developed the COVID vaccines. But if you go back in the record, in the clips, you will see Tony Fauci talking to then President Trump and doing a tour of the Vaccine Research Center and trotting out his scientists that he was crediting with having invented and developed this product. So all of those scientists, there's 5 or 6 of them, Bobby talks about this, that are going to receive $100,000 or $200,000 for the rest of their lives because of the Bayh-Dole patent revenue. What's not talked about is that that's only a subset of the patent revenue. Most of the money that comes back goes into the pockets of the NIAID, and it becomes a slush fund. They can spend it any way they want.
And Fauci's been very secretive about the money he gets. Trump made the point of he doesn't need $15 million a year of government security. That was illegal, by the way. They were doing it secretly because he's got a lot of money. He made a lot of money. Does Trump know how much he made? Does anybody know?
I don't know, but as I recall, it's well north of 10 million in terms of his net worth right now. And remember that his wife, Christine O'Grady, is the head of bioethics for NIH and NIAID. So she was in a position where she could protect him from the consequences of all these things. And I believe she still remains employed at the NIH. So yes, Tony Fauci had direct financial incentives to flip-flop on his positions about natural immunity.
Sure.
Because his agency and his employees, and presumably him, were receiving some degree of revenue from the royalties being paid by Pfizer and Moderna. And they actually went into a great big patent fight over this, and the companies lost. NIAID is receiving a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars here. But you get a substance that, extends through time. You've been right about so many things, and I have deep respect for that. And deep respect also for your willingness to stand up and fight against the forces that are coming at you, which are very similar to the forces that have come against Donald Trump. I guess they have yet to try to assassinate you. And to a much lesser extent, I've experienced those things myself. And if nothing else, it has allowed me to see the truth of what you and Donald Trump and so many other people are going through.
We're battle-hardened together, absolutely. We've been through the fire and come out stronger by the grace of God.
Yeah, I refer to it as the crucible. And Bobby, to his credit, has also been through the crucible. You just scrolled through our Substack latest and hit at the top the methylene blue essay that came out yesterday. And what I noted there is, what amazing times we have. HHS is now led by a bodybuilder who is also a biohacker, who actively uses methylene blue to enhance his performance and cognition. That is an amazing statement that I just made. I can't imagine that happening in any other time in my life. Always head of HHS has been headed up by some stodgy lawyer or, backroom operator or somebody that is linked to the pharmaceutical industry. And now we've got a true warrior who really cares about his health and cares about the health of all of us. And he's been given, just like Elon Musk has been given a mandate. It's a little bit of a restricted mandate as we looked at the executive order in the creation of this MAHA commission, which is cross-governmental, includes people from Treasury. So that demonstrates how broad-based it is. But when you read the president's language in this executive order, he does speak about transitioning from a focus on treatment of illness, disease treatment, which is the central metaphor of FDA, CDC, and NIH, to health promotion. And that may seem like a small thing, but it's a huge leap forward. And one of the ways to kind of understand how different this is that all of these agencies are siloed. That's the common term in commerce, big business, and government. They are very focused on individual areas of expertise. And the consequence of that is that things that cut across areas get neglected. Like, for instance, one of the major causes of disease in the United States now is obesity, and obesity affects all kinds of systems, our heart, our gut, diabetes, metabolic disease, chronic inflammatory disease. These are all linked to obesity, and of course that is linked, now we know, to things like highly processed food and use of seed oils. All that is now on the table. Yes, you like that quote. The future is definitely here. It's unevenly distributed, and this is a classic statement. I have written. You're highlighting the human augmentation essays that I posted on Twitter. These go back to, I think, 2021. We've been writing about super soldiers, human augmentation, the position of the DoD, transhumanism. I think we have 5 essays out now. And like a lot of our stuff, and like a lot of your stuff, it was overlooked at the time, didn't get a particular lot of attention, but now it's coming back to the fore. And it is part of the Elon Musk portfolio. We can't overlook Neuralink. So thanks for highlighting that.
Absolutely, and we can go into Musk right now. I mean, there's so many angles, but let me just throw this out before I forget. I do want to, obviously, what Hotez predicted, because he knew,
Yes.
The bird flu hyping, the fake Ebola thing in New York, Bill Gates last week, you better leave USA alone or tens of millions will die. I mean, they are really scared right now, and they're trying a bunch of stuff. And then we've got to look at this. Bad guys are trying to bring in the administration. So yeah, anywhere you want to go, Musk, go ahead, everything.
So what kind of stimulated Andrew Huff, and it can't be understated how bold that was, that he came out with those statements on your show, because he's been actively vetted for a very senior position in this administration. And he became so frustrated with what he was seeing that he felt that he had to speak out, and he had to speak out on your show. And he spoke quite clearly and forcefully, among other things, about Jerry Parker. So let's talk a little bit about Jerry Parker, because it's very relevant to what's going on. And one of the items in the news that's being overlooked, which is that the USDA has now authorized a bird flu vaccine for bird flocks, for chickens and ducks and all that kind of stuff. So Jerry Parker is an interesting character. He's retired colonel. He's twice been head of USAMRIID, the United States Army Medical Research and Development Agency, which is what grew out of the basically importation of the many scientists that were involved in the Japanese biowarfare program during World War II. Just like we brought scientists like Werner von Braun back from Germany in the V2 program to launch our, Dr. Lynn Finn is a good friend. Just like we brought back scientists to launch our space program, we brought back biowarfare specialists from the nefarious Japanese biowarfare program. and use that to populate USAMRIID and launch our own biowarfare capabilities, which I'm told ended up spending more money in the development of biowarfare agents than we actually spent on the development of thermonuclear weapons. You have to understand in modern biology, much of what we understand about virology and infectious disease comes from the massive investment we made in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in biowarfare. The heads of many of the American Society of Microbiology and other associations were also in parallel senior people within the biowarfare infrastructure that the government funded. One of the people that came out of that infrastructure is Dr. Jerry Parker, DVM, PhD, who has been serving as the Associate Dean of One Health at Texas A&M University. And I understand from one of Jerry Parker's former employees that he's a great guy and a super good boss. And I'm sure he is a good person, but he is absolutely invested in the current world of thinking culture, well put, the current culture that dominates the entire biodefense infrastructure and what is now really the biodefense medical, government, and academic industrial complex. And they are very wrapped up around the idea that human health needs to be placed in an equivalent position to environmental health and animal health in terms of prioritization. So it's just as important to facilitate animal health as it is to facilitate human health or environmental health. We're all on the same level, and we're not in a situation, according to this theory, where human health is the most important of these priorities. The animal or zoonotic origin of the China virus was so heavily emphasized, and the actual laboratory origin was de-emphasized, is because it fit the narrative that they wish to promote, which is that animal health is intricately linked to human health, and that we all have a risk that viruses and other pathogens in the animal world cross over into humans. Now, of course, this has a direct socket with the current propaganda, I believe it is, the current psychological bioterrorism that is so actively being deployed concerning bird flu. And what is being told to all of us is that we need to somehow control bird flu because it is likely to cross over into humans. And I was just talking to a colleague of mine who's deep in this world, former USAMRIID, former employee of Jerry Parker, who was talking about how it's such a paradox that all these animal species like cows have been infected with bird flu, and yet humans have not yet. What he overlooks is that we have never actually surveyed in the past all these other species like cows for whether or not they're infected with influenza. Bird flu has been circulating for decades. It is endemic in our waterfowl. It's endemic in a variety of migratory species. Okay, and it is basically an influenza that's adapted for birds. And we have had bird die-offs associated with avian influenza. We are not seeing cattle die-offs. And we may well have had cattle infected with bird flu for decades, and we just didn't know it because we never looked at it before.
And isn't this just a pretext as they want to move in and, they said they want to reduce and ban eating red meat. I mean, it's all just an excuse to attack it.
That is certainly a hypothesis. And Alex, I'm at the point now where I won't discount any hypothesis because so many things that were labeled as a conspiracy theory have turned to be true.